I just woke up, of course. I'm watching, that morning programming show that I watch. And of course, they're talking about you know who's again, and Oprah, and you know who's. And I'm sitting there looking at Oprah, and I've had so many issues with Oprah. you know, with great power comes great responsibility. And I don't know that she asked for the power that she had at one point where people were following her or mindless zombies, but there were things she did on her show, and I brought up people selling drinks, and she didn't sell drinks, but there was a point where she was talking about drinking all the time and how much fun it was. I said, that's like in the middle of the afternoon or whatever when that show used to come on, and I'd be like, what if somebody's drunk and they're trying to stop drinking? It's those kind of things that bothered me. And, all her self-help ding-dongs that she used to have on, that just a lot of stuff, especially stuff like The Secret. What was the other thing she did? Anyways, I'm sitting there looking at just the dynamic of them three sitting there, and I'm like, oh, like I said, she's done a lot of stuff that I wouldn't side-eyeing her for, but I don't know, I'm looking at her, I'm like, she knows Harry's lighting himself on fire, and she's letting this happen. She's got the wisdom. She sees the situation. Is she going to let him light himself on fire so she could get the interview later on when he's completely lit on fire? I don't know why she would want to do that. Is it a sensational interview? Yes. Is it going to get mad ratings? Yes. Does she need money? No. Does she need to be more famous or no? So why let this man destroy himself? Does she even work for one of these networks? No, right? She just... People have been so... In the first 20 years of this century, people have been so operating from narcissistic ends and me, and there are those celebrities I don't like Ryan Seacrest, who have 15 jobs, and it's like you leave a job for somebody else. There are people who they have to make more money, be more famous, be in the middle of everything, be that person, and do whatever they have to do for themselves, and it's been seen as like heroic or something to aspire to, but that selfishness. I remember I barely knew who Jay-Z was. I still barely know who he is. First I heard of Jay-Z, he was singing, he was rapping over the little girl singing from Annie, and I was like, that man made a song stealing from little girls. But then he became really famous. I guess he had a lot of hit songs. I don't know any of them because I assume they have bad words and didn't go on the radio, but I don't listen to the radio anyway. Like I said, I'm too old. But I remember him being called a genius and brilliant. And I remember thinking at the time, I'm like, it's just because he made a lot of money. For rap, a lot of people made money on rap songs. He made a lot of money. And it seemed like that was the criteria for him being a genius. The amount of money that he made. Not that he cured any diseases or, anything like that. And I'm not blaming him. Because he's not the one who, said those things. But it started to become, like the 80s were supposed to be this horrible decade of, people, decadence and people wanting to have money. It was, no, nothing like the last 20 years or so. People just doing whatever they could to make as much money as possible. That's why we have a 1% now. And they don't care what happens to the 99. And like I said, people like Oprah or anybody's like, what? You're doing things that are wrong. I talked many times about the actor selling tequila. You know who I mean. It's The Rock. He's got more money than he's ever going to part with. He's actually talented. He could be in decent films, but instead he decided to sell an alcoholic beverage to a captive audience who were in lockdown just to make more and more money for himself. And I think in the middle of all that, he decided to endorse a political candidate and piss off half of his fans. You want to say megalomaniac about these people. You want to say something like that, but it's just like, what happens where people say, I have to have everything. I have to be everywhere. And if somebody gets hurt, so what? That's their problem. Why didn't they do what I did? Or they could do what I do too. Because I don't think any of these people started off bad. And I'm not even saying Jay-Z's bad. I'm just saying the attitude of more money. Because I know nothing about him. I wasn't including him. I'm talking about the people who have to have their hands in everything. Have to keep being seen. And that people think that that's an ideal. This is what I'm talking about. That you're supposed to chase. It's not a fame, because fame is one thing, but you're supposed to chase this thing of being that brand where you're everywhere and omnipresent. I guess I'm touching on what they're trying to be, where you have to have so much money, and whoever falls by the wayside, whoever gets damaged along the way, because people a week or so ago were talking about Britney Spears and how horrible it was, the interviews they did with those people. Now Oprah's over here doing an interview with these two. I'm looking at Harry and like, this kid, does he know about real life? I know he's been a soldier. I know he's done real things. But I'm saying in terms of being without the safety net of being in the royal family. My ear's really itching. I don't know if something bit me. I just something happens to me. I'm not a genius. I'm not a magical person. I'm not a wizard. Sometimes I see something, or I see a person, and immediately my brain goes directly to what it is, directly to what the real, concentrated version of what's going on, like the what's beneath it all. And I just sit there and I'm like, this isn't just an interview with famous people. It's driving me crazy. There's something really wrong here. There's something wrong with people doing this. There's something wrong with Oprah at this stage of her life saying, well, let me do this interview. It's not entertaining. It's not. You want to talk about a car crash? I hate to, allude to her mom, but this is people watching a car crash. There's no other way to put it. So in this way, it's almost like I'm looking at Oprah saying she did something to their brakes. If you're doing this interview and you're allowing them, not Meghan, of course, because she's not the one destroying her own family. If you're allowing them to do this, that's like letting your friends drive drunk, right? That's like messing with their brakes. That's like you're taking part. You're not just filming the car crash. You're aiding, you're being an accomplice in crashing the car, because without an Oprah interview, I'm sitting there looking at it this morning going, what's it going on in her head? Why is she thinking she wanted to help these kids just completely? I mean, maybe she thinks she's completely destroying royalty and it's wrong that people should be like that. I don't know, but unless she's just saying, oh no, I'm just doing the interview, which the number one, I mean, that's the drug dealer attitude of, oh, if I didn't sell it, they get it from someone else. Is that kind of, oh no, well, it's not me, I'm just, don't shoot the messenger, that kind of crap. But that's not what this is, because I'm just looking at Harry as pathetic, overly sheltered, protected in a way the vast majority of people could never understand. Suddenly, the story of the Buddha, Siddhartha, and how he didn't know what's old age and death. I mean, it's not that bad, but still, you're a prince in a palace, and, somebody from outside comes and tells you everything about your way of life is wrong. You may have had issues with it. You may have had problems. You may not like being second fiddle and never being king. Maybe they treated him bad for that way. We've got all the Shakespeare books to look at, but this is going to be a Shakespearean tragedy for Harry. Unless something magical happens and they stay together and everything's wonderful forever and ever. That could always happen, but I just see a setup. I see a setup on this kid. And maybe he needed his mom, because maybe nobody else is really on his side. It sucks, but just something struck me this morning when I was looking at the three sitting there, and I'm saying, a person of conscience would pull a kid aside and say, you sure you really want to do this? Because all the things I'm saying to Harry, do you want to do this to yourself? You may think you're burning down your family or you're exposing them. Do you want to do this to yourself? Do you know how bad real life is? You really want to do this? But I think she asks him in the interview, you don't do that. That's how you tell yourself you're a decent person. You don't let him do the interview in the first place if you have any kind of compassion for the young man. That's my opinion. Nobody has to like it.